Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brandon Phillips, and welcome to the Howard County Candidates Night, hosted at Forest Ridge Elementary, October 19th, 2016. The Savage Community Association and the Forest Ridge PTA are pleased to co-sponsor this forum to ensure a well-informed and educated electorate. The Savage Community Association is a nonpartisan civic organization serving the needs of historic Savage for more than 50 years. Our members provide a voice for the community to state and county leaders, inform residents of upcoming developments, lead community engagement efforts, and organize local events and community outreach such as Savage Fest, the holiday tree lighting ceremony, annual plant sale, and ice cream social. The Forest Ridge PTA is a volunteer organization that works to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. Their members partner with a wide array of organizations to promote child health, well-being, and educational attainment through strong parent, family, and community involvement. Recent successes include raising $9,000 for safer playgrounds, supporting teachers with needed school supplies, and hosting educational events like this forum. Together, we believe that an informed electorate is essential to sound governance, and this event is intended to promote that goal through a fair, unbiased, and nonpartisan program. Over the last 30 days, we've reached out to the community and have collected hundreds of your questions, and many more tonight, in preparation for this evening. As we ask those questions, please listen closely to candidate answers. Are their answers specific? Are they sincere, knowledgeable? Are the candidates being asked about your priorities? Are they addressing your priorities? Are the questions fair and pertinent? Afterwards, please continue this evening's discussions with your friends and family. We will be recording this event and publishing it online and on public access channels. Please let us know what you think. And finally, go out and vote. The general election is November 8th, and your vote is critical. Some quick technical details. All candidates will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves and their qualifications, 60 seconds to answer each community source question as asked by your moderator, and 30 seconds for closing statements. We provide a countdown clock in the rear of the room. You can see it fairly large, and a volunteer in the back as well with warning flags, if we could have those lifted up for us. Thank you very much. Yellow means 15 seconds remain. Red is 5 seconds. Black means time is up. We have a fairly tight schedule this evening and ask candidates to closely follow those times. Many of you may wish to continue discussions with our candidates after the debate, and we invite you to do so at the campaign tables outside in the hallway. Many candidates have brought informational tables with them where they can discuss issues in greater detail and provide additional points of contact for follow-up. With no further ado, we're very excited to begin. May I please ask the candidates for the Board of Education to join me on the stage. And if I could now have the Girl Scouts are doing our flag ceremony. Please rise. I'd like to begin with opening statements by Ms. Kirsten Cooch. You have 90 seconds.
Good evening. Thank you to the Savage Community Association and to Forest Ridge PTA for hosting us tonight, and I appreciate everyone coming out to listen to us. My name is Kirsten Coombs, and I am running for the Board of Education this year for Howard County. I have been endorsed by the Howard County Education Association and by the People's Voice Ethics Ballot. I have been involved with my daughter's school since she was in kindergarten, and I continue to volunteer at her middle school, although she might not always like that. But I am very pleased with our schools. I think that they are successful. However, I want to make sure that they continue to be successful. And one area that I think is falling down is the support for educators in the classroom. We're diverting resources to central office and administration, and I want to make sure that we focus on the classroom, the daily interactions that our children have, what's going on in the building. Resources should be devoted there. I'm an accountant by background, so I'll bring a financial sense to the board, and it is a very large budget, over $800 million. But I will also bring the voice of a current parent. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you again for having us.
Thank you. My name is Vicki Catronio, and again, thank you, Forest Ridge PTA and the Savick Community Association for hosting this. I love the student involvement in this. It was great to talk to them before the forum started. I have 3 children, 3 teenage girls. 2 are at Glenelg, 1 is at Glenwood Middle. Last year, I became more heavily involved in the school, in the policies of the school system when a mold issue was revealed to me by a teacher that was kept from parents for years. And so that started me on this path of advocacy. And I ended up collaborating with local officials, with the media. I worked on legislation, and there's now new policies in place. So I got a lot done with my efforts. Also, it expanded into other areas. I hooked up with special ed advocacy groups, bullying advocacy groups, and I started to really look at the budget and use social media platforms as a resource for people, for teachers to confide in and tell us what's really going on. I learned just how much lack of oversight we had on bids and contracts, how many projects have become boondoggles, and they're just approved 5-2. There's really no oversight on it. Sole source contracts, we are up to already, I think, $729,000 in sole source contracts in this year alone, without any questioning of it. This is the kind. I don't think we have a budget crisis. I think we have a budget priority crisis. I think we do have money to put back into the classroom, and like Kirsten said, I want to focus putting our spending into the classroom. Decrease class size, more paraeducator support, and to start really bringing the teachers, the community stakeholders, parents into the conversation about where our priorities are. I have been endorsed by the People's Voice Ethics Ballot and the African Americans of Howard County, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. I look forward to speaking with all of you.
Good evening. I'm Christina Delmont Small, and I would like to thank the Savage Community Association, the Forest Ridge PTA, for putting on the event this evening. I have a 5th grader and a 9th grader, so I'm seeing firsthand the impact of the decisions of the Board of Education and the school system in our classrooms. And I began advocating when I was on my PTA at a local level. And then I went to the county level, where I served on the board of directors of the PTA Council of Howard County, and I also served for 3 terms as their president. In that role, I was advocating at the local, the county, as well as the state level. And I began to see some changes in Howard County. And as my advocacy continued, I also sat on the Board of Education's Operating Budget Review Committee for 3 terms, and 2 of those as co-chair. After the Board of Ed decided to get rid of the committee, I worked with the president of the Teachers Union to create the Citizens Operating Budget Review Committee, because I felt it was imperative to continue to have parental as well as community input into our budget. Now, as time has gone on, I've noticed, and I keep hearing from parents and educators, that they feel as though that they're not being represented on the Board of Education, that the school system is not listening to them when they have suggestions or concerns, or even want to get involved and be on a policy committee. That was not the Howard County that I envisioned when I moved here for my children. So before having children, I spent time on Capitol Hill as a congressional investigator for a U.S. House of Representatives committee. That means that I am not afraid to ask the hard questions. I am going to listen. I'm going to get to the bottom of what's going on, look at the information, see where that information leads me, and then come up with solutions so that we can have the type of situation that we want here in Howard County. Because right now, that is what is lacking. We are not putting forth what we need in order to have the school system that we want for our children. So I look forward to your questions this evening, and I've also been endorsed by the Howard County Education Association, the People's Voice Ethics Ballot, as well as the Baltimore Sun. Thank you.
Ms. Ellis?
Good evening. My name is Mavis Ellis, and I'm running for the Howard County Board of Education as well. I was elected to the Board of Directors for the National Education Association that has 3 million members. I worked on developing budgets, implementing programs that impact the nation's schools. I've met with Congress for support on increased funding for public schools, college affordability, and getting rid of No Child Left Behind. Then, as one of only 8 NEA elected delegates to the 7th World Congress of Education International, I was able to support issues impacting educators across the world on issues like women's rights, outsourcing of education jobs, and human rights violations. I was also elected to the Board of Directors for the Maryland State Education Association, serving 70,000 members, developing budgets and programs, and creating a legislative agenda for our General Assembly, that including using public dollars for public schools, less time for testing, more time for teaching, and fair teacher evaluation models. Those board seats ended September 1st. As the president of the International Association for Truancy and Dropout Prevention, I focused on attendance, disciplinary suspensions, and poor academic success. I've had over 30 years of experience in education as a PTA president, classroom teacher, administrator, and educational evaluator. As a pupil personnel worker for 15 years, I've worked with students, families, and educators on a daily basis to provide support and resources on bullying, special education, discipline, homelessness, and mental health issues. My goal is to make sure that all students feel safe mentally and physically as they strive to reach their academic goals in this world-class school system. Thank you.
Outstanding. Mr. Miller?
Thank you for this opportunity. My background includes 34 years of teaching in the Howard County Public Schools at elementary, middle, and high school levels, as well as having a daughter and son who attended HCPSS schools. I hold music education and psychology degrees from College Park. As a teacher, I've been told that I can't speak out about concerns or I could be accused of insubordination. I have seen the amount of potential instructional time that is instead spent on excessive standardized testing and a poorly conceived teacher evaluation system. I have felt what it is like to serve administration instead of feeling that administration was serving teachers and students. I have seen time and money wasted on regrettable educational fads that came and went. Now I am seeing a lack of openness and honesty with the community that most parents wouldn't accept from their kids. We should have a budget oversight committee and a budget that is effective and efficient. We should, of course, have healthy buildings. We should prioritize the learning of hierarchical skills and provide one-on-one assistance to students when needed. We should work toward equity so educational opportunities for students are not determined by the financial situation of their parents. We should have an intelligent approach to technology use, instructionally and operationally. We should work with parents of special education students to ensure that their students are working to their potentials and provide appropriate funding to that end. We should maintain high-quality arts and athletic programs in addition to high-quality academic programs. We should provide for an appreciation of diversity with appropriate instructional opportunities. There is so much that we can do to improve, and I'd like the opportunity to move these initiatives and many more towards fruition. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Janet Siddiqui, and I'd like to thank the Savage Community Association and the Forest Ridge PTA for hosting this forum this evening. I've been a Howard County resident for over 30 years and a pediatrician at Johns Hopkins for 22 years. And I've been serving on the board for several years now, and I'd like to thank the community for allowing me to represent them over the years. I'm seeking re-election, and over the years, what I've focused on mostly is achievement gaps. And while we've made progress, there's still a lot to do. And there's a lot of research that's coming out these days and different ways to address those. So I look forward to putting that knowledge and the science of learning behind that. Over the years, I've worked with the community groups in establishing a world-class wellness policy. I've advocated for additional positions for psychologists, pupil personnel workers, and nurses in our schools that have kind of helped to address the social and emotional needs and health educational issues in our schools. I've worked also on the school nutrition policies. Also school construction. There's been, in this area in particular, we've had a lot of renovations and additions and some that are still going on. And all of those programs and those renovations have been LEED Silver certified. There's a lot of important things that are coming up, especially even in the next year. The budget is always an issue, and funding from the state and funding from the county, and making sure we have the right priorities. But also there's some important policies that are coming up next year. The attendance area policy, and also anti-bullying. So I look forward to your questions this evening and giving more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates. The first question this evening will be directed to Dr. Siddiqui, and that question is, you will have again 60 seconds to respond. What is the correct standard for special education? Specifically, can you speak to the intersection of the paraeducator ratio in kindergarten and middle school?
Special education, our children are one of our most vulnerable groups. And making sure that students' IEPs are being met, and making sure that we have the resources for our students in terms of technology and assistive devices. One of the important things that is going on this year is the special education department is working on a strategic plan for special education, and it's involving stakeholder groups. Stakeholder groups such as the Autism Society and CCAC. And I think that's a great partnership and a great issue moving forward, because we want to work collaboratively. We want to make sure that students have what they need. We want a ratio in teaching that works in the classroom in terms of special education teachers having the knowledge and the sports to address behavioral issues through PBIS.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller, same question. Absolutely. What is the correct standard for special education in Howard County? Specifically, can you speak to the intersection of the paraeducator ratio in kindergarten and middle school?
Thank you. I don't have a specific ratio because I think it's somewhat dependent on the number of special education students that are in a particular classroom, and for that matter on the background of the teacher. But in general, unfortunately, the paraeducators were reduced in media and in kindergarten, and that has put an extra strain on those areas. So I would like to see them reinstituted. I guess my main concern here is that students get the one-on-one attention when they have challenges with hierarchical skills. So if you have like a second grader that's having trouble with subtraction, we have to make sure that he or she understands that, so when they get to long division, they're not going to be lost. So that's where I think we need our focus.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Ellis?
When a student is in special education, they have what's called an individualized educational plan, an IEP. And there are specific goals on that IEP that need to be addressed. There should not be any time when a student has goals that are not being addressed, and if they need to have paraeducator support in the classroom to make sure those goals are met, that is what's key. That's the determining factor for the number of pairs that are needed for special education. In terms of kindergarten, our class sizes have gotten so large. It is very difficult for a kindergarten teacher with 30 or more children to provide for all of those children. So I would support having more pairs for kindergarten. And to support our middle school, that would also be a plus. That would be something I would focus on in the next budget.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Ms. Delma Small, same question.
The problem is that the current Board of Education, at the end of the year, has transferred millions of dollars out of special education salaries and put it into other programs. Which I find interesting, since I keep hearing from parents who have children in special education and educators and paraeducators that they don't have enough people in the classroom to do the job. And the challenge is, when you have inclusion, that means every child is impacted by not having enough staff. So I think the problem is, of course there's a problem with the ratio, because the Board of Education obviously is not considering that being a priority, especially in kindergarten. As we all know, we want to create a foundation for our children so that they can have the best possible education. And how better to do that than to make sure that they are properly supported when they are in kindergarten. And unfortunately, middle school seems to be a wasteland. We need to do better and put the money where we need it.
Thank you, Ms. Delma Small.
I went to an autism meeting last fall, and they kept talking about the ratios. And I said, well, who came up with these ratios? Where is it documented? Is it teachers in the classroom that came up with these ratios, or people who never have been in a classroom? So I think that's all I keep hearing about from special ed parents is the lack of support, lack of trained people in the classroom. Paraeducators are stretched beyond belief. They're running up and down the hall, different classrooms. There's no time for planning between the teacher and the para, so that what's over on the, having an IEP is all great, but if you can't do it physically, you cannot get everything done. It really does no good. Also, not everybody is aware of the IEP. Not everybody gets the full IEP to know exactly what the children need. So I agree with Christina. Why we had funding transferred out of special ed when we have so many needs is beyond belief. It's a disgrace. Actually, we've made it very hard for special education families and for students, and we need to build a more collaborative relationship. I think bringing the paraeducators back into the kindergarten classrooms and all grades. And like she said, middle school is a wasteland. Full inclusion doesn't work. All of a sudden, you're fully qualified for full inclusion when you leave 5th grade. It doesn't make any sense.
If you look at this year's budget, you'll see that there was a forecasted increase in the number of children with special needs. However, there was no corresponding increase to the staff for children with special needs. So we have to be honest about that. And you know, some board members have tried to ask and they haven't gotten a good answer. So in regard to paraeducators, that's one of the things that actually drove me to run. Was I had volunteered at my daughter's school, you know, starting in kindergarten, and I saw how important instructional aides are to making the team work. And some people will say that other counties don't have as many paraeducators. But my response is, well, what made Howard County special? What was working? What brought us here? Why are we trying to dismantle it? Thank you.
Outstanding. This question will go to you again, Ms. Coombs, and this question is from one of our local 4th grade Girl Scouts. Even with the 2-hour reading block, there isn't much time allowed for actual reading. What steps will you take to improve time allocated for students to read?
I've heard from a lot of teachers that have talked about some of the requirements that are being pushed on them by central office in terms of requirements of the Daily Fives and other little fad kind of programs. And I'm worried that we're not encouraging reading enough. Kids should have more of a chance to get those skills, and instead they're breaking up all these classes into like little 10-minute chunks. And there's not a consistency that kids can get into a rhythm. So we need to take a look at that. And we also need to involve educators in that so that educators can say what are the real impacts, and they should be involved in making the change for their students. Thank you.
Sorry, when I was speaking with the fabulous group of Girl Scouts over there, that's what they kept saying. They don't have enough free time. They don't have time to relax. They don't have time, if they want to go read in a cup, they don't have that time. Everything is so structured, and it's move to the next thing, move to the next thing, move to the next thing. And I hear you. I have children of my own, and I hear the same thing. We need to make sure that our class time is meaningful. We're not just doing busy work, and we really need to focus on trying to find that niche, that happy place where kids can have that flexibility and just go off and read and spend their time doing club activities and things like that. So I hear, and I know that with the Common Core and teachers have to follow, the set standards of things they're supposed to be covering, and if a kid gets it, the kid gets it, and if not, they have to go home and do homework and possibly have tutoring and try and catch up. So I know that we're mandated by the state and all of this for the Common Core, but I think that we need to really try and focus on bringing back the fun into the school day and giving children the opportunity to learn to love to read, and it's not just an assignment and something they're forced to do. Thank you.
I think their question leads to a very, very important question I think we need to ask, which is, why isn't reading important in the classroom anymore? Because if there's not time for it, obviously someone is deciding it's not important. Now, I'm going to bet it's not that educator. I'm going to bet that it's somewhere up the line. What are we doing to our children? Reading, we're adults. We understand how important it is to have a habit of reading. And unfortunately, not all children have the time to read at home. So that's why we have reading in school, so that we can build those habits, and also so that the teachers can spend the time individually with the students that they need to see which students are struggling and how to help them, and also have peer-to-peer assistance when there's reading. But you know what? We're not doing that anymore. The main problem is the system, is standing in the way of our teachers teaching. And quite frankly, if we got out of their way and allowed them to be the professionals that they are, I think we would be all better off.
Wow, I'm so glad to hear that students would like to read more in school. The programs that come top down are a problem. Our teachers know what is working best in their classrooms, and having time to read is very important so that students can gather knowledge in the classroom, that teachers can differentiate the instruction according to what type of reading needs to occur. And I think that we do need to make a focus on reading, offering reading, and doing reading skill development for the students who need it in our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Miller?
Thank you. That reading block is probably split between reading and writing and social studies, so there's not a huge amount of time in there just for reading. And unfortunately, I think some of that time is being skewed towards test preparation. So if we could get rid of that time and return it back to reading and make that more of the focus, I think that we'll have a lot better situation for reading in the elementary schools. We have to, emphasize that the assignments are of high quality, so there's not time that, say, students are just, copying stuff from a book, but that the time is spent doing things that are useful. That will also free up time in situations where that's not the case. I'm not necessarily implying that's the case in this particular classroom. But it's so important because in elementary school, you learn to read. And after elementary school, you read to learn. So if they're not set up with solid reading skills by the time they leave the 5th grade, then they're going to have problems the rest of their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Dr. Siddiqui?
Our children have so much in their school day, and we're trying to make them career and college ready. And in the middle school and some of our elementary schools, and we have world language. And it's a challenge to make sure everything fits in. One of the things that really we have to look at in terms of reading is incorporating it into other classes, incorporating reading into social studies, into science, because there's different types of reading depending on the course level work. So other schools also have some programs like DEAR programs, which means drop everything and read, where they'll take moments out during the day to just allow the students to read, and supplemental programs that our other students or PTAs supply as well. I wanted to thank the Girl Scouts for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. They did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddiqui. The next question is, top-down educational standards came up in our last question. Particularly as it relates to Common Core, what is the right balance of these standards, and how do they affect student attainment in Howard County? Dr. Siddiqui, you have the floor. Absolutely. top-down educational standards came up in our last question, being designated from the federal government. Particularly as it relates to Common Core, what is the right balance of these standards, and how do they affect student attainment in Howard County?
One of the things with the Common Core standards is it does create throughout the United States a certain level of where you know where your child is going to be in first grade and fifth grade. In Howard County, what we've done is we make that our minimum. The Common Core standards are a minimum. We don't purchase any curriculum from any company out there. We build our own curriculum. We have talented teachers that write our curriculum during the summertime. And it's been a challenge, it's been an adjustment, and we're learning along the way, especially because there's not a lot of resources out there that reflect the Common Core standards. So we're building some of our own resources. The teachers are putting it online through Canvas. But the goal is to make sure that, through the state mandated program that our students are career and college ready, and we'll supplement that however we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddiqui. Mr. Miller.
Thank you. The Common Core standards are basically a set of standards, and then we design the curriculum to go with the standards. Part of the problem, though, is that the standards are very restrictive in terms of this is when certain things have to be done, and it needs to go in a certain order, and which causes a problem if students have difficulties or need extra assistance. So I think we need to build some flexibility into the way that we are dealing with the Common Core, and make also some decisions about, do we want to continue following those standards? And they are very PARCC-oriented, standardized testing oriented. That's how they're assessed, and I'm not crazy about the PARCC assessments as they are either. So I think we need to get more teacher input into the process.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Ellis.
As you probably know, the federal standards were basically under No Child Left Behind. That is gone in terms of the federal mandates, and we now have the Every Student Succeeds Act that is determining the kinds of assessments and evaluations that we have at the state and local level. And they do allow for more educator input, for input from our local boards of education in determining the standards that will be that our students will be measured on. So that's very important. That will not go into effect until 2017-18. So in terms of the Common Core and the focus, we are spending too much time focusing on testing, focusing on skills, just the skills to be tested, and we need to look at ways to cut back and minimize the kind of testing that we're demanding of our students.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Mr. Delmont Small.
I went to back to school night. My son takes Algebra 1. The teacher told me, here's my challenge. Because of the curriculum and the standards, I have to teach something different every single day. She said she does not have the time in order to help the students who don't get a skill. So these children are falling behind. This is what the problem is. Yes, there are standards and we can develop our own curriculum, but the problem is the standards have a stranglehold on the curriculum and our ability to develop it that is best for the children in Howard County. I don't know about the rest of you, but I moved here for the schools in Howard County, and that was way before Common Core. So we had an amazing curriculum. We have amazing teachers. We had something that worked. What did we do? We threw out the baby with the bathwater. And I don't think that's the best thing to do. The Board of Ed needs to be proactive. Right now, the ESSA standards, the regulations aren't written. The Board of Education needs to comment on those regulations so that we can have more input.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis Small. Mr. Neal.
Okay, she said what I was going to say. Yes, we need to have more input on the standards. Also, we've made the PARCC test as one of, under Vision 2018, as a standard by which we judge whether we're successful or not. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on the testing because we can't say we're successful if we haven't met these goals. And if park testing and the number of kids taking the AP exam are part of these standards, then that just puts all the pressure. We're developing curriculum, we're developing initiatives that just help kids do well on the test, because that's going to make us achieve our goals under Vision 2018. So yes, I think we need to have input on the standards, and also maybe not make park testing scores part of the standard for which we judge whether our students are successful or not. Maybe we should look at GPA, things that go over the course of the semester and the year. So I know that we do have software and curriculum that's developed that's used to improve scores, to help them take the test, and I think we need to relook at that and have more teachers involved in community input into the standards for which we run the Common Core curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Catriano. Ms. Coombs?
Like my other colleagues have said, I think there should be more teacher involvement, but we also need to be honest. We have to look at our relationship with the state delegation, because we need to work with the state to get these things changed under the ESSA. So we have to work with our state senators and delegates, and I've been working on developing those relationships for the last few years, and so that we can affect change, because they're going to come to us and want answers and want our opinion. So we need to be able to lobby at the state level, so that we are making decisions for the local level and representing our local communities and what we think that we need in our community for our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Coombs, this question will go to you. We live in times of rapid social and technological change. What is your vision for the class of 2025, and how do we get there? That makes me feel old, too.
All right, 2025. I would hope that we have a return to a community-based schooling system here in Howard County that made us successful, where we involved educators and we involved the community and sought input from stakeholders. I would imagine that we'll have great technologies and great computers, and our kids will still know more than we do about everything, but I want to be careful that technology doesn't just overwhelm every year of school, because I don't think that little kids in elementary school should be bringing their own device. I didn't really think that my daughter should be doing that yet last year in 6th grade. We need to make sure kids are ready to use these devices and use the technology.
Thank you, Ms. Coombs. Ms. Catriano?
2025. I would hope that we have a school system that is focused. We measure the success by the relationship of the teacher and the student. I think we're losing that with our focus on data collection and testing. Teachers don't have the time to develop the relationships. And I know if you think back, what do you remember about your teacher? Your favorite teacher. It was your relationship and how they helped you and the impact that they made on your life, not the tests that you took or the tests that they taught you how to take. So that's what I envision, is that it's a little more of a holistic type of school environment and not so data-driven and rigid. I hate the word rigor. Every time I hear it, I get rigorous. But that's what I'm envisioning. I'm envisioning more individualized education, that it's not a cookie-cutter type approach, that we have more teacher input into that. It's they who know the kids the best, and that they who are the experts, and the parents. So that's what I would envision, is more of a teacher-focused and classroom-focused school system, that we judge our school system not by the most successful students, but by the experience of the students who are most vulnerable. I think that is what I envision. Thank you.
Michelle Mascall?
Well, I would like to see us be a student-focused and not a system-focused school system, where we care about the individual needs of each and every student. And I also hope that by that time, we still are a great school system, because I am very concerned as to the direction that we're going. We are not allowing the professionals, which are the educators, to do what they know that they need to do. We're not asking parents. We're not working with parents as much as we should be working with parents. And I want to see less testing. And I certainly don't want to see any Gallup polls trying to figure out whether or not my child's educator has a best friend at work. I want to see us spending our funding in a way that supports the classroom. We have gotten away from putting funding in the classroom to putting it into pet projects and things at the county level that are not educating our children. That's what I want to see in the federal classroom.
Thank you, Ms. Delmont. Ms. Ellis?
2025. I think the voice of the educators who are teaching our children every day should be valued. They should be able to work with technology that actually works, and that's provided in an equitable way across the county. We should have a diverse staff that reflects the students that are being taught in the county, and that there is no overcrowding in any of our schools. The class sizes are reasonable so that teachers can actually teach what they need to teach. That the relationships, I liked hearing the relationships, not just with students to teachers, but with students to students, and with teachers to central office staff, so that they can have communication back and forth, as opposed to the central office staff saying, this is what you will do in the classroom. I see that in 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. I agree with just about everything that my colleagues said. I'll add to that. I'd like to see more customization for individual student needs and abilities. And I think as technology continues to evolve, we should be able to do that, but not to replace the importance of the individual teacher-student relationship. And I think we need to focus much more on that and make that what the decisions that are made are based upon. I think we should have less of an orientation on testing and evaluation, and again, more on individual, making sure students have the hierarchical skills that they need to build a solid foundation for success. Information attainment is so much easier now. We can take out our phones and find out just about anything we want, but our phones can't teach skills, and we need to make that differentiation, which is different from 20 years ago. I imagine that will continue in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Dr.
We're preparing our students now for jobs, our kindergarten students, if we're thinking about that far out, for jobs that don't even exist yet. And what we've seen over the past 10 years is a definite advance in terms of technology to jobs, cybersecurity. Some of our programs are ARL in terms of cybersecurity, biotechnology. Those are programs that we need to enhance. Even in our construction program, you have technology in terms of computer-guided design. So it's certainly and very important that we look at technology as a tool in learning. It needs to be balanced, though, and we need to have equity. Worked with county government over the years to make sure that all of our school classrooms are wired for internet access. And then also making sure that there's equity across for all our students to have access to the internet at home and access to technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddiqui. All kids hate homework, but Americans overwhelmingly believe it's incredibly valuable and more is better. Some studies have suggested the opposite, though. Do HCPSS students have too much homework? Why or why not? And this question goes to you, Dr. Siddiqui.
Well, my children never liked homework, and I never liked homework when I was a kid either. I think you really need to strike a balance. You need to strike a balance in the classroom in terms of creative thinking. But there's some areas also that areas that need reinforcement, and you need to look at each child individually and see, strike that balance in terms of the individual learning plan, or looking at each child as the concept of universal design for learning, where you take that child's strengths and you work on those strengths, and areas of weakness that you work on those, and trying to create a balance that works for family and the community at home, because we want our students to have all the opportunities that makes them feel well-rounded.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddiqui. Mr. Miller?
Thank you. I would have to answer that generally because it's different for some students than others and some teachers than others. But generally, I would say, yes, I think there is too much, although I think some is important. I think research is valuable to look at, but I think that's only part of the picture. I think we also need to look at common sense. And I think we need to look at individual needs and desires. Research has not always led us in the right direction educationally. So I think we need to focus on two words: quality and balance. We need to respect that other things that students do are also worthwhile and make sure they have time to do it. And but on the other hand, make sure that the assignments that are given are of high quality. Again, so they're not just copying, things from a book, but they're actually things that are going to help them learn and give them better opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Ellis?
Okay, first of all, I believe that there should be no tears with homework. If a child has so much homework, they're struggling through it, and they're in tears, that's too much homework. And it does happen, and parents have to let the teacher know this is what's happening so that it can be cut back. Some courses may need some repetition at home in terms of students working on various kinds of problems or doing something, a long-term project. There are good rationales for homework, but balance, as Mr. Miller said, is important, and there should not be tears with homework, and I think parents and PTAs should be noting that and saying, it's too much. And the other thing is, parents should not, especially in the elementary school, be doing the work for the children. Sometimes the work is so hard that the parents have to do the work and help them through it. It's not parents' homework, it's kids' homework. It may be too much.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Ms. Belmont-Small?
Yes, balance is a very important thing because we all know as adults we need to understand how to do that in our lives, and we need to start teaching our children that, and with homework is one way to do that. I have to say, we have to ask ourselves, what is the point of the homework? The homework needs to be so that the child can increase a skill that they're learning in the classroom, or they need a little bit extra practice. But I'll tell you that as a parent, what I find very frustrating is my children don't have textbooks. Maybe I'm too old school, but my parents were able to look at the textbooks and help me. I mean, if I have to Google my second grader's math homework because I don't understand it, there's a problem. That is a big problem. So what we really need to do is we need to provide the parents the tools so that we can at least have an idea of what's going on in the classroom. I've gone to the website to try to figure out the standards, which are quite frankly gobbledygook, and do not translate to the homework. Parents need the information so we can be in control again.
Thank you, Ms. Belmont-Small.
Personally, I don't think that there should be homework in elementary school unless it's review. It's to reinforce, if they need extra help. Personally, that's what I think. But as we move on, obviously, I think homework is very necessary. I think in high school, I think the pressure to take AP classes, GT classes. I have kids taking 3-4 AP classes. They're going to have 8-9 hours of homework every night, and I think we're pressuring them into this, like it's the be-all end-all to take all these AP classes. Kids that may not necessarily be qualified or be at that level. So I think we need to look at the why. Like, why is there so much homework? I know my high school, I have 2 high schoolers, and they are drowning in homework, and they are taking all of these classes. And I think that's the big problem with high school, is that the proliferation of these advanced classes, and maybe we need to, I know that we're losing honors level classes, maybe we need to get back to the basics and have our kids be at the level that they need to be at. I hear you. I've got 2 high schoolers. It's not pleasant at my house every night, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cotroneo. Ms. Coombs?
Kids are so stressed. I wouldn't take away homework, so I'm not going to stand here and promise that, because I think homework can be necessary to prepare for the next day, to review, but it should not be as onerous as it is currently. Kids are not going to bed until 1 or 2 a.m. in high school, and that's not healthy for them, for one thing. And then I was speaking to a high school student recently, and he said, Our teacher sometimes grades the homework, but we don't know when. So he's playing Russian roulette every night. Should I do my homework tonight or not? And that's not fair to the students. If they're doing the work, shouldn't they get some kind of feedback on it? I do think homework should be a very low percentage of the overall test grade, though. So homework can be useful. I mean, practice does make perfect in some cases. You know, that's why we send our kids to soccer and dance practice so that they can improve. So homework can be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coombs. Next question goes to you as well. The majority of American families now feature both working parents. Schools don't always seem well attuned to those realities, though, such as when school holidays mismatch federal or employer holidays. What would you do to minimize this burden for parents?
That's a fun one. I remember how hard it was when my daughter was under 12, or under 10, not able to stay alone, even for an hour or whatever. So I think that we have to involve the community and figure out. They have to be a part of the puzzle. So the board and the superintendent should not just throw out what the community comes up with. And I know that with the governor's Labor Day executive order, there are 2 calendars going around, and one of them does try to place professional development days at different spots before the school year starts, so that they don't occur, every week, because we have all these 4-day weeks in September, so we do have to be conscious of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Coombs. Ms. Petronio?
Yeah, I think this year was an experiment that when we matched up, tried to accommodate all of the religious holidays, and I think that's great to try and respect the diversity, but I think we're seeing that it's not always practical, that it makes for a very disjointed calendar, and it's always good to have a 5-day week, and I think we went 3 weeks before we got a 5-day week. And that affects learning, when you have a 4-day, a Wednesday off in the middle of nowhere, it affects working parents because they're not off on those days. So I think we need to look at it again, perhaps, even people that were for, matching up the religious observances with professional development days are changing their tune a little because they see having a professional development day 1 week after school starts when there's really not much, it's kind of impractical. And so I think it's something we need to look at again, definitely to match up with the state holidays, to match with working parents. We have to do that, but I think we need to look at it to make the calendar a little less disjointed and a little easier for parents to plan their days off and child care coverage. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petronio. Ms. Delmont Small?
I have to say, that was the one thing that shocked me when my children started school, because my husband works for the federal government. We're right outside of Washington, D.C. You throw a rock, you're going to hit like 3 federal workers at least. It made no sense to me why we did not match the calendar to the federal work days. I kept trying to see maybe there's some sense to it. I never saw it. So I really think we need to look at that because it just does not make sense. And also, the calendar for the school is supposed to maximize the educational experience of our students. And that's, I think, what we need to keep in mind when we look to developing the calendar. And that includes talking with our educators and ask them, okay, professional development, maybe, is this really when we should hold professional development? Maybe you're not getting the professional development you need, and maybe you need it at a different time during the year. Again, if we had better communication and we had more bottom-up and not only top-down communication with the board and the school system, I think we'd have a much better calendar.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis.
There are a lot of groups that are impacted by the calendar. As a former classroom teacher, I taught government in high school for about 10 years. And the marking periods, they don't come at really good time periods. And if you have 150 students, papers, projects, and all of that to grade, you need maybe a day to grade the papers and do report cards and get all that in a timely manner. So those kinds of days, they call it professional development or a staff work day, they are hard to schedule throughout the school year. That makes it easier for parents. One of the things that I'd like to see more of is the schools being open for other activities on the days when, teachers may be doing professional development. There may be opportunities to use the gym or the cafeteria for other kinds of programs that would allow some in-building supports for our families.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Mr. Miller?
Thank you. It's a challenging situation. There is a calendar committee that meets and makes these decisions and bases their decisions on priorities and competing needs. And there are a lot of challenges there. I think that we need to get more community input to you know, you're never going to be able to make everybody happy, but I think we should at least get the input and try to, you know, maximize, you know, how many people we can make life easier for. There are 180 days in the student year, so one way or the other, you know, there are going to be you know, needs for child care for many people, and we have to try to, you know, take into consideration, you know, anything we can do to make things a little easier for them, along with the other competing situations. I think it would be good to work with Rec and Parks and the Columbia Association and set up programs for students on these days off. And I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Dr. Siddiqui?
The school calendar is probably right up there with redistricting in terms of one of the most difficult decisions that we have to make. Always value stakeholder input, and the calendar committee works very hard to try to give the board choices in terms of what to decide from. We have one gentleman every year who always emails us or comes to public forum that says, you know, that we need to be off on Columbus Day, the same as the federal government. But we take input from all the stakeholder groups and try to make the very best decision. One of the things that I've tried to push over the years is the half days, because that's really frustrating for parents as well, and trying to eliminate the number of half days. There's never good instruction on half days, and it's a struggle for parents to, you know, get off from work and get home in time for their students. So I definitely would value everybody's input when we look at the calendar on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddiqui. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask you to answer this next question in 30 seconds. And this question is, and this will begin with you, Dr. Siddiqui. This evening, school custodians cleared this room and set up our seating. What is your perspective on HCPSS outsourcing, and specifically, would you support any proposals for outsourcing school custodians in HCPSS?
We have some of the best, we have the very best custodial and maintenance service in the state of Maryland. They work so hard and keep our schools so clean, and they're valuable employees. I would definitely not outsource. I would keep them in our school system. You know, they're part of the family. They're part of the school family, and you know, they're special to the kids as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddiqui. Mr. Miller?
I also would not want to outsource our custodians. They are part of a team, and there's a trust that is built up between them and also between the faculty and students and our custodians that is worth a lot. It's something that it's hard to replace, and we need to make sure that we preserve that aspect from all of our faculty and staff.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Ellis?
I would not support outsourcing our custodial staff. Again, as Mr. Miller was saying, they are part of our family, part of our team. I think that they are committed to our students and to the parents that they serve in these buildings, and I just would not outsource at all.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Ms. Belmont-Small?
No, I would not outsource them, but I would question the millions of dollars we're spending on consultants and contractors. That I would definitely want to take a look at. Because I think if we stop spending, I mean, did you know that we spent $180,000 a year on a social media contract that wasn't competitively bid? I mean, we have consultants and contractors all over the place. I think that is something that we need to look at so that we can look at how we can get money back in the classroom and pay individuals who are part of the family what they deserve.
Thank you, Ms. Belmont-Small. Mr. Antonio?
I agree. I would never outsource the custodians. They are part of the family. They are invested in the buildings. They know the buildings better than anyone. Last year, Glenwood Middle School had a fire, and it was very upsetting. They actually saw the fire in the kitchen, and my daughter's class, the 7th grade class, was in there. It was the custodians that got the kids out, and one of the custodians went back in and got all the kids' retainers. I mean, you know, that really, she went in and got every kid's retainer because she knew, you know, how much money that was, and, you know, I get teary-eyed thinking about it, and that's the kind of relationship you have. Custodians know everything, and I would never outsource them, and yes, I would look at other contracts. There's so many other things that I would, that we have contractors, subcontracting, and contractors. That's what I would first look at. I would never outsource the custodians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Catronia. Ms. Coombs?
So I agree with all my colleagues, but I'd like to talk about something that we are outsourcing, legal. I looked today, and we are paying, one man has made almost $160,000 in July and August, one law firm that we're outsourcing. And if you annualize what the 2 months of July and August were, it's $1 million. So let's stop outsourcing legal and bring it back inside to create a less adversarial relationship with our parents. Because we should be working together to address children's needs. Thank you.
You got it, 30 seconds.
I'll stay right here. My name again is Kirsten Coombs, and I am asking for your vote on November 8th. I've been endorsed by the Howard County Education Association, the Baltimore Sun, and the People's Voice Ethics Ballot, and I hope to bring back a level of trust and transparency and accountability and rebuild the relationship that has been lacking so much over the past few years. Thank you for your time, and thank you again to Savage and Forest Ridge for hosting this event tonight. Thank you.
Catronia?
I think as voters, we can all just say what you want to hear, and we can all read from our papers. And you think, how do I know? How do they know that they will be the Board of Education member that I think that they're going to be? I think what sets me apart is that I'm already doing what my campaign platform is. I've already been working on transparency issues. I've been involved in legislation. Whole policies have changed. I've brought a renewed interest to indoor air quality and health, and also to the budget and bids and contracts and sole source contracts. So I'm already doing it. I did it long before I decided to run for the Board of Ed, and I think that sets me apart. Also, having kids in the school system, I think, is a great advantage. It gives you a connection, and you're invested in the school system. So that's what sets me apart. I hope that you'll consider voting for me November 8th. Thank you.
My name is Christina Delmont Small, and as you can tell, the budget is something I really want to take charge of and look at, because quite frankly, we need to do that. I want to take my professional experience, and I want to take that to the Board of Education so that we can have the transparency and the oversight, and have a Board of Education that actually has oversight over the superintendent. And also to have your voices back on the Board of Education, because right now you don't have that. I'm running to be part of the solution, and I ask for your vote in November. Thank you very much.
Yourself?
I'm Mavis Sabellas, and I've been endorsed by the Howard County Education Association, the Baltimore Sun, the African American Coalition, and the People's Voice Ethics Ballot. My extensive background in education, working on national, state, and local budgets, evaluating programs, and fighting for the implementation of legislative agendas at the national and state level that impact Howard County's students, their families, educators, and the community, clearly qualify me to serve on the Board of Education. Vote for me in November.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Miller.
Thank you. There is much more I would like to communicate, and I hope you will view my website, miller4boe.org. I would like to bring the perspective of a recent school system teacher and parent to the board. I hope to make the school system more trustworthy and responsive, and more concerned with enabling students to reach their potentials and follow their passions. I want the system to be learning-driven and focus on the intersection of teacher and student. I'm Robert Miller, and I appreciate your consideration as I hope to bring thoughtful, positive change to our school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Dr. Kaminsky?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a follow-up question, because the in-house legal services was the superintendent's legal services. It was never the board's legal services. And we had to be very careful to make sure that, you know, we'd be tempted to use them, but we had to keep that separation there. If you still want a pediatrician on the board, please vote for me in the general election. There's a lot of issues coming up over the next year. School start times, I moved forward with the board and it was unanimous for the next 17-18 school year. We have the bullying policy, the school attendance start time, and there's issues in this community. So please take the time to look at my website, janetsadiki.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And thank you to all of our candidates for the Board of Education.